What's up? I'm Ed and he's Michael. We're Conquer and Hold. We're a weekly Riftbound podcast where we talk about all the happenings and news about Riftbound. We also stream every 6:30 at the People's Card Shop Twitch. Come check us out our Nexus nights. We do live commentary. Michael, what's today's episode about?
So today on Conquer and Hold, there's a second Chinese regional actually already. So we're going to talk about the top 4 deck list, and then we're going to do a rundown of what all the best of deck lists were. Okay, so for this regional, there was 512 players, and as we all expected, Draven was the king of the entire tournament, not just in how many Draven decks there were, but in the top standings as well. 148 Dravens in total. Surprisingly, a lot of Irelia, 66 decks were Irelia. When we look at the standings, not a lot of them went through. People are thinking Irelia is strong into Draven, but Draven has kind of proven them wrong a little bit. Then Kai'Sa leading that up with Fiora. Fiora did get second place in the last one. It got second, right?
Yep, it got second.
And a lot of people want to try their hand at the Fiora deck list as well.
Wait, no. Fiora.
Going into day 2, Draven and Irelia were at the top, but surprisingly, everyone else just had a one-of deck list except for Annie and Victor. The champion himself is Draven, taking home the prize. And here are the standings. First place, Draven. Second, Fiora. Third place, I'm very, very happy about this, in Ezreal deck. And he has a very interesting list with new kind of a gear synergistic Ezreal instead of that Mundo-based Ezreal. Then we have top 4, Draven. Looking at top 8, Irelia, Draven. And in top 16,
even more Draven.
Bunch of Draven.
And here's top 4. So this is the first place one. It is going to be a Draven deck list. And this is an interesting one here. We've been deciding if maybe Miracle Draven's better, Tempo Draven's better. But from the results from China, I think they favor, mid-range Draven or just good stuff Draven more often. I'm a big fan here of the Brynir Thunder Song. It is a tech card mainly against the Mirror, which is very good, stopping stuff like Rebukes, Ride the Winds, just all the actions on your turn. But more importantly, against something like Irelia, it's very, very easy to steal the first couple of points. Once you get a lead, you just play a Thunder Song, and then you could just steal 2 points out of there, stopping Defy, stopping Not So Fast, and you'll be able to push through. So it's just a bunch of really good red cards with the best kind of purple removal that you can have.
Thunder Song has been a real champion. If your deck is bad versus card, it's basically been pushed to the outskirts of the meta because so many red decks are opting to play this card. It is so powerful. You drop it down and you are uninteractable for the entire turn.
Yeah, I literally love the Victorless unit decks. I love Lex, but I've been kind of shying away from it right now just because Thundersong, I thought it was just going to be a side deck card, but it's literally seeing play in a lot of the main decks.
And not having power 5 might's weak, but it's for the ability and no power cost, it's really strong. Here's a side deck. Running the Ferocious Forerunner in the side because it's not that good versus all the other Draven decks. If your Forerunner cannot die, then you don't get the extra might at the end of the day. So we're only siding this in versus these very tempo and fighty matches, and then we're keeping it in the side deck versus Draven because if he gets rebuked or pushed back, we're just wasting 6 mana and a power for absolutely nothing at all.
Yep, and next we have the Fiora deck that did get second. It's pretty interesting because the first Chinese deck that had Fiora doing well wasn't a baited hook deck. However, this bucks the trend, and they decided they wanted to play baited hook, and I'm a huge fan of it. I kind of like the combo potential of it, where sometimes you play this aggro deck, but when you have baited hook, you're kind of chaining all these cards together, and you're going to be able to see all your power cards, kind of like summoning Spectral Matron over and over and over and over again. Helps you push through a lot of the control decks. I'm
a big fan of baited hook. I think it's a very interesting way to play, and Fiora being able to have all these tiny units get bigger with the weapons is her whole, bread and butter. That's what she wants to do, get the extra power, buff up her units, and it just happens to work super well with baited hook. All of your cards can summon any of your other cards if you just have one weapon attached. So now the weakness of baited hook, trying to go up the conga line of the powers, you can just circumvent all that. You can attach a BF sword to one of your guys continuously and just summon the Harness Dragon straight off of your 2-drop.
Yeah,
which
and
is so
potentially
wild.
draw 2 off of Unsung Hero also.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Really good combo.
But honestly, my favorite part about Fiora is her signature spell. Just having a counter spell in those colors when you're normally a really aggressive thing, you kind of checkmate your opponent a lot of times with this card.
We're running 2 in the main and 1 in the side. Also in the side deck, we're running some type of interaction. We have the salvage for gear removal, a challenge in order to have that creature-based fighting. And for decks where they're going to have that spell removal, you put in the sabotage in order to check for that before you actually drop your big units.
And then the next deck is going to be a fan favorite, a deck that I didn't think was maybe going to be the most popular deck or going to be one of the best ones, but I was hoping for it. And we have Ezreal in 3rd place. But I've been a big fan of the 3-drop Lucian, the one that untaps himself every time he conquers. So I'm a huge fan of the addition of Pit Crew, which is kind of like the signature card of this Ezreal deck. If you don't know what Pit Crew does is, whenever a gear comes into play, ready him. So he's able to kind of, every time you summon a gold gear token, you're able to move him in and out. And he's a really awesome combo with Cull. You basically get to summon him readied with untapping him with Cull. And then when you conquer a battlefield with Cull, you get a gear token. You got to untap him again, pull him back, and then you kind of use that monster as like a guy to like dodge and move around, and use all your Ezreal removal spells to kind of win the game through that tough removal monster.
It is so crazy that we looked at Pit Crew and we didn't think much of him. But the combo potential of moving in and moving out with all of these small gears, when you look at this deck, you're like, why is he running Call? Why do you have these boots in here? So strange. But it just works so well with the Pit Crew. When you're moving into the side deck here, normally this deck, in order to have its top end, it has its Mundo. But Mundo is unreliable at times. He's a big guy that can get removed. You got to get to 8 mana, and he has 2 power costs. It's really hefty to get there. And most of the time, games are decided way before Mundo comes out. And if you drop the Mundo, yeah, you won, but most games you lose before that happens. So Orin is a little bit of a smaller Mundo, but more synergistic, easier to play, easier to fit in your curve, and easier to protect than Mundo ever could be. So I really like the addition to, oh, it's a really fighty game. Let's put in the Orin.
And then the next deck is going to be the other Draven deck list. We just wanted to show it because we want to show all of top 4. This one has a little bit more one-ofs. So the reason why you'd play maybe a lot more one-ofs is to kind of just make your deck have more varied threats, make not necessarily inconsistent, but you just want to have more outs in your deck. Interesting enough, he did choose to play Forerunner. And also, it seems that every Draven deck just seems to be like to play Void Splitter. And that seems pretty interesting to me.
Every time I see Void Splitter, I'm like really impressed by it. Like I look at it when deck building, I'm like, I don't want him. But every time someone plays him on the board, I'm like, man, he feels strong. The other really strong thing, going back up here for a minute, is the Edge of Night. I'm surprised that all these Draven decks are like straight up running like 2 to 3 Edge of Nights. I didn't think it'd be that strong of a card, but the +2 power on a reactionary basis that can come back over and over, I guess it's good. And then moving down here, this Irelia deck is into top 8, so we're actually out of the top 4. At this point, we're just going to look at the best of decks. This Irelia is a classic Irelia deck moving around the battlefield using all of your targeting to ready Irelia on tap her. The cool thing about this deck is that in the side deck, they are running the gear removal Adaptatron. So in certain situations where your opponent has a lot of gear, a lot of weapons, like Fiora, instead of moving around the herder a bunch to draw a bunch of cards, you're moving around the Adaptatron to continually push your opponent's weapons, destroy them, and try to win the game in that way. Interesting.
And then I have one big thing to say about this Irelia deck is there seems to be 2 kind of arguments for what Irelia decks should be made. Should you play kind of a Protect the President deck, or should you play more of a kind of mid-rangey deck? And I think this is more of a mid-rangey deck because it just plays 2 drops. The more Protect the President version, foregoes 2 drops, tries to play a little more setup. And I think I like this a lot better in a Draven meta where you're trying to fight and you're trying to make sure that, you're not going to get behind in points, that you want 2 drops. So I think that's just a common trend in this meta, that if you want to play a deck, try not to play more of like a high-end version. Try to play something more low to the ground because Draven wants to, bully people.
I like the Lonely Poro.
Yep.
It's a cool 2-drop.
Yep. I like pumping it up and it just draws cards.
Now we're off to the top 32 because the rest of the top 16 was Draven. We have a Victor deck. This Victor deck is going a little bit away from the unitless Victor because Thundersong in the meta is so crazy that it is really hard to justify just keeping mana open on your opponent's turn for kill spells. And they're just going to be ready for it anyway and play the Thundersong. You float all your mana. You wasted so much tempo. So in this version, we are really relying on Xin Zhao in order to take the aggressive... We're the aggressor in this circumstance. Hopefully we can get 1 or 2 units down early, drop the Xin Zhao, push in, and protect ourselves with the Hidden Blade. Sometimes the Hidden Blade just gets canceled by the Thundersong, but it is what it is sometimes. In the side deck, Grand Stratagem isn't really that strong into every matchup, unlike Imperial Order. So we side the Grand Stratagem, and then when it's good versus fighty decks like a Fiora deck, we'll put it in.
Imperial Decree.
Imperial Decree. Thank you for the correction.
No spells here. And then here's top 64. And I love that we featured this Ornn deck before, where it was the Tiana Crown Guard, Protect the President style deck. And here it is in top 64. The Ornn deck kind of abuses the fact that Seals is free, so it gets to play a bunch of these green powerhouse cards and not care about de-ramping itself. And also, what's awesome in here is it plays Sona. I'm a big Sona fan, being able to have untapped mana. I really think having it summoning Sona into a battlefield and having a card like Emperor's Divide up with the initial, Sona activation is such a strong move in green decks. And then a big fan of the Apprentice Smith. I didn't think this card was going to be seeing a lot of play, but when you play, how many gears is this? This is over 15 gears?
It's a lot of gear.
I think it's a pretty consistent way to have a draw engine.
I really also like the Spellsonger combo with the Sona. Everyone, when Spellsonger came out, they're like, Sona can get so much mana. But it's what deck can actually realistically protect the Sona? Ornn can. And this is really cool having... we are protecting Sona early, and then later on we might transition into the Crown Guard when Sona is able to hold a spot, and then we get that Crown Guard in the spot that Sona's in, and then they're holding together.
And then here's the side deck. The second Tiana Crown Guard is really cool because sometimes you will not be able to protect her. You just need a little more insurance. It's really nice. And then it just kind of has little bits of removal and counter spells with Singularity and Janna, being able to kind of push and kill monsters. And then Windwall and Defy just being more counterspells against the meta. I really like Windwall just because it's a generic counterspell. Obviously stuff like Not So Fast is really good because it is only 1 power, but Windwall is just so generic, being able to stop stuff. Even stopping stuff like a Time Warp seems like, I think Windwall should still be looked at in this meta.
Does Spellsonger only stop spells?
What do you mean Spellsonger?
I mean,
Not So Fast.
Not
So Fast only stops things that target.
That's true.
So monster abilities or what is it called? Spells.
Next off, we have this really interesting Kai'Sa deck. Kai'Sa, at this point, the way she was playing is just not as strong as Draven because the purple aspects of Draven were just overpowering the blue aspects of Kai'Sa. So what this Kai'Sa player decided to do is says, scrap all that. We're not going mid-range Kai'Sa anymore. We're actually going full-on removal Kai'Sa. I love the get excited, being able to run gigantic spells like Progress Day, Singularity, Time Warp, using those spells in order to win your game. But if you got too many of them, you get to use the power for free from the Kai'Sa Legend ability, play Get Excited, and deal 10 damage or 6 damage to an enemy unit just for 2. That is so powerful. But if they put the Thundersong out, then, unfortunate.
Yeah, but I really enjoy this deck list because one of the issues with the Thundersong is, one of the issues with decks that lose the Thundersong is they just don't have good creatures. But with this deck playing 3 Watchful Sentry, 3 Electric Yordles, you're playing creatures that are cool with dying, and then you kind of come back after they have the Thundersong turn with your own Thousand Tail Watcher. So I really like this adjustment of still playing creatures, but playing a heavy removal game. And I can't wait to test this deck out when when we're done filming this, honestly.
Yeah, the Get Excited is really interesting.
That's one of my favorite cards. I play a lot of Volibear, and Get Excited is broken in Volibear. So imagine when you don't play a power for it.
In the side deck, the Forerunner isn't good versus a lot of Draven decks, so it's sided, but it's very good versus Fiora. Moving on, we have Rek'Sai. This Rek'Sai list, we would There's so many versions of all these decks where, again, this could be a baited hook deck, but this individual is deciding to have a mid-range red and green or a red and yellow core backed up with yellow kill spells and red damage spells. They're trying to summon the Immortal Phoenix over and over and over again, and it's really strong to continually summon that, and then it's going to get affected by the Rek'Sai himself.
Yep. I just want to say something. If you want to beat Draven, I think you need to kind of not fight them where they want to fight them, how they want to fight you, in the sense that they want to be able to push all your creatures out in the middle of battle. The easiest way to stop them from doing that is just kill their creatures. So when you run in, even if they push out, nothing really bad happens. So I really think this common trend of every deck just being a bunch of removal cards is going to be a common thing until Draven stops being the most popular deck.
In the side deck, just extra kills. You can run Thundersong yourself since you're red.
Broken. And then here's the Lucian deck. I really, really like watching this deck in this feature match. And it just gets to play a bunch of really awesome, good cards. It gets to play the suite of Brian Thundersong.
His name is Brian, if you didn't know.
Shouts to Brian Thundersong. Brian Thundersong, and then it plays Kaisa. So it just plays these really, super impactful cards. But it gets to play Auction, and it gets to play Lucian. I'm a huge Lucian fan. If I thought Pit Crew was broken, being able to untap and being able to run in and out of battlefields, Lucian being a weapon master, being able to pick up stuff, but more importantly, being able to weave in and out of combat is so strong. And we can't forget that Relentless Pursuit is just ride the wind, but not in those colors. And if we've learned anything from the Fiora deck, if you're doing something not in your colors, it's pretty strong.
I think when you look at a Riftbound deck, you normally have like one of your champion in your unit, and in your deck you normally run one. But we see in Kaisa decks they run three because Kaisa's so broken. Lucian is so crazy that you also run 3 Lucians. You run your one in your zone and then the 2 in your deck. Since you're red, again, you run in the song, and then we have the Forerunner in here for the more Fiora matchups. Here we have a Annie deck list. Annie is kind of an unfortunate loser of this entire Spirit Forge meta because Thundersong is so good versus her. Her entire game plan is just to keep mana up at the end of every turn. While you can't have unlimited Thundersongs, you can play him on crucial turn. That really affects the Annie's ability to interact with you, but Annie still has a huge thing going for her where the champion unit herself gets to reuse any spell from the graveyard, where you get to rebuke and pick it back up, or ride the wind, pick it back up. So any spell that you need to use twice in a pinch, you get to have. That's why I love the Annie unit herself.
And we can't even sleep on the fact that, yes, even though we think that Annie might have not the best matchup so far because of the meta, Annie has consistently made top 8 of both of these Chinese regionals, so maybe there is some hidden technology or hidden gameplay that we have not seen yet.
Yeah, you probably just have to play really well.
Really tight, exactly.
That still means the deck is good. You got to have a good pilot. In the side deck, we're running some Mind Splitters because we're purple, and we're just all about looking at our opponent's hand. If we cannot play under the Thundersong, let's look at it and try to rip it out of there.
And then next we have the Azir deck. What was really cool about this meta was, even though it was a lot of Draven, there was a lot of one-of decks, and I was very happy to see Azir make top cut here. I'm a huge fan of the Under Titan being able to just, be a grand stratagem, but be a monster is really, really awesome, especially in combination with something like Arise. Like, I can only imagine, playing, Arise plus Under Titan, making all your guys big. That'd be really sick. But it plays a bunch of, weapons to power the Azir unit. It's really strong.
Yeah, it's very interesting, Azir's game plan of playing little tiny weapons and giving him a dude. As I've been playing Azir, I find sometimes in the late game when you don't find the Rise, it's man, you're running out of steam. But a Rise is such a powerful, powerful spell that just making a guy for all the weapons you've played through the entire game is so much value. And the side deck, just, bunch of different removal cards, some counter spells. Here we have the Sivir deck. Interesting enough, we didn't see a Misfortune deck. This is basically just the Misfortunate Aurora deck, but Sivir. I really like how little minions he runs. He runs 2 Debloons and 3 Splitters because we're relying on the equip cost of Last Rites to recycle 2 units in order to put them back to our deck. So we get to run more removal spells, more options. We don't mind drawing some of our creatures because when we hold, our Last Rites is going to allow us to resummon those or put those creatures back into our deck and then resummon them with the Aurora. So I really love this game plan. So instead of running like 2 Volibears, we're running 2 possessions instead in order to maybe snag an Irelia for ourselves or take a Draven, something like that. So very interesting. But there's a lot of gear removal, so easy to counter. In the side deck, we run 1 Anivia just for decks that like to go wide.
And then next we have Set. Set is just an aggressive deck that kind of wants to summon a bunch of really big, powerful units, put a buff on them, and Set basically makes them very, very hard to kill with the protection effect. I think Set is pretty good solely because the color combination of orange plus yellow seems to be really strong, having a bunch of removal, having a bunch of strong actions like Punch First. So I think it's a very solid deck here, but I don't know if we're going to see more sets in the future.
Okay, and that is all of the top 4 and then up to top 64 for the best of decks as well. Our question for you today is, what was your favorite deck list coming out of this regional? What was yours?
I did not expect to like that Kaisa deck so much, but
it's interesting.
I just think I love Progress Day. That card is so cool, but more importantly, I think Get Excited is nuts. So I can't wait to test it out.
I have 2. I really like the Ez deck, but I super love the Ornn deck. Yes. I think the Sona Ornn deck with the Spellsonger is so cool. You basically have to get all your mana up all the time if you have that little combo. That's the one I want to play test right now.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us yours in the comment below. See ya.